it doesn't matter whatever we do on this car, somehow this fucking shield down here always has to come off. Today it was my mistake because I dropped one of the silly ass Vortec bolts for the bracket down under the header. So my recommendation is just leave the fucking shield off.
Throw it in the garbage.
One thing we know about the FRS, BRZ, GT86, FT86 is the suspension is excellent from the factory. It works on the track, it works for autocross, and it works on the street, and everybody likes it for the most part. So why would we want to go screw something like that up? Well, I never wanted to modify the suspension, but one kit did catch my eye, and that's the Ohlins Road and Track setup. This is a more higher-end coilover kit. Now, some may argue this is not a hardened track setup, and it is not, but it's a good setup for everything. But we're going to install it and find out, and then we're going to go down south to Hendersonville, North Carolina, to the Ohlins headquarters and talk to them about specific questions we have about the kit. Back in the shop for more fun. Our goal with this was to get stock ride heights on stock suspension and the stock weight of the car on all four corners. Now, as we began setting this up on the scales and getting our heights, once we had everything plugged in, we realized that our wheel scale computer was not working at all. It was just dead, even though it was just calibrated 6 months ago and not used since. So this day's pretty much as fucked up as usual here. We're doing preventative. Before we even take the suspension off this car, we're going to make sure that the front end links on the sway bar come off, because if they don't, there's no point in doing anything else.
Oh, you're filming this, someone's going to say you're doing it the wrong way. Those people on fucking YouTube are ridiculous. I was watching one video, and the guy was, that guy doesn't know what he's doing. He's using chrome sockets on an impact. It's like, dude, if you even had a fucking clue what it's like to work on cars for a living.
So what we just did is we pulled off the Strano Parts sway bar. And this was actually a really good sway bar in terms of performance, but I think the design has some issues if you're going to modify like our overpipe. It came in contact with our overpipe with the aluminum clamps on. So it's good to go back to stock for us because Ohlins tested their suspension kit with a completely stock setup. No changes to the car at all. So we're going back to how it started and then we'll build from there. Scott used his whiz gun on these bolts, but apparently it didn't do anything because he's just all show and no go. So this is something I just wanted to bring up. This is the stock suspension, and I had the white line eccentric camber bolt on the top hole here. Now this white line bolt is actually made by SPC. This is the factory bolt. I've had this bolt in the car for less than 6 months, and you can see how much surface rust is on the complete bolt compared to the stock piece. This is one of the reasons why I'm hesitant to ever use any SPC suspension parts, because I think it's just going to rot out. I don't know, the quality of the hardware doesn't seem to be very good. The good thing about replacing... God damn it! There we go. This is the Ohlins front strut assembly with camber plate. We've assembled it, and now we're going to install it on the vehicle. And then you just simply, once this is assembled, you just feed it up. Huh? So after you slide it up in there, you just want to make sure that the camber plates are obviously facing the right way. So you're sliding the strut in or out from the center line of the car. Okay, so when we're reassembling this, since we took the camber bolts out, and another thing is, since this part of the car is really the load-bearing structure, we got new bolts and new nuts, which the service manual recommends anyway, but a lot of people think that me and Turbowski are kind of overkill with this shit, but I think it's, well, I think maybe I'm overkill with it, but I think this is an important part, not reusing what we had, get a fresh start. So we're gonna put these bolts in, mount it to the hub, and then torque everything down, connect the ABS line, the brake line, and then we need to adjust our preload, and then eventually ride height. Got it? Here's the nut.
I don't want a nut, I want a bolt. Is there any slop in there? We'll push them both in.
Turbowski's putting anti-seize all over me right now because that's how we do it in the bedroom, as you can see. But he's putting it on the sway bar end links because these will for certainly not come off after a couple of years, maybe even one winter. So Ohlins provided a spacer for the factory end links. Basically, you just slide it on there into the hole and then screw it in. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to go back to the stock sway bar, just in case there was fitment problems with it.
And then
Push in.
Is there slop? I think pushing them off, because that's what I would push them off. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're gonna torque these bolts. This is the actual upright bolts. We're gonna torque
Are you
to.
on the bottom or top?
I was on the top. Guess it would fucking help if I was on the right bolt. So we're gonna torque these to 115 pounds, top and bottom. It's actually 114.3, but whatever. So what you're gonna do now is, now that the strut is installed on the front, you're gonna do this on both sides. This spring, uninstalled, is 200 millimeters in length from top to bottom. Once you install the spring inside the kit, what you want to do is adjust these collars here to adjust the spring preload. One thing is, with the instructions, it's pretty clear in terms of how to measure this. So at the bottom, this space here, we can measure this and see that the space at the bottom is now 19 millimeters. So it's kind of like a double check to make sure that your preload is correct, and you have two ways to measure it. So 19 millimeter space here, 198 millimeters of the spring length now compressed. Trying.
You ain't gonna be able to hold it. You ain't gonna be able to hold it.
How do we do it? Just on the top of the car then?
Yeah.
Well, how are we gonna do it on this? Oh, through there?
You have to.
Well, I guess it's tight.
Unless you want to put this on in a vise.
Yes, you
You
could.
ain't gonna be able to hold that.
You're right. All right, let me just adjust the preload and we'll do it inside the car. Will there definitely be enough room in there though?
Can't see up there.
Well, fuck it, let's just put it in a vise. Jeez. First things first, we have to remove the OEM shocks from the back.
Get the right.
You can see we can pull down the lower control arm. Pull that down a little bit, Scott, just so I can, you can pull it. You don't need the channel locks to go to the bathroom. So what we have here is the rear shock absorber assembly. 8.1 pounds.
Do all the same shit to it, no cameras involved, and we'll see how long.
All right, so we got a Ohlins Road and Track rear shock absorber with the assembly completed at 7.6 pounds. Tough jobs require protection, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you got there?
Lady Speed Stick, invisible dry.
Okay, so our sponsor at Lady Speed Stick knew that we were going to be tackling probably a 3 to 4 week project here with the suspension, because I don't read directions and Turbowski sweats. What size is
It's
it?
gonna fall out, so you're gonna have to catch it.
I'll catch it.
I'll pitch, you catch.
It's because it's on an angle. Look at that. Look, would you look at that? Just look at it.
Is that off of fucking
This is kind of the beauty of shock absorbers. It's a lot easier to...
I'm putting a couple rounds of wedge in the car right now.
He's putting a couple rounds of wedge.
Good thing your sub box isn't in here for this. Your lights went out on the band test box, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I don't know why I have the fucking sock on. Holy shit. Wow.
Did you anti-seize this?
Yeah. I don't want to get it so dirty. Let me use my pink towel. Oh, hell, this one is easier. Because it's already that sway bar is pulling up. Now I need fucking torques for all that. Oh, fucking close, man. Jesus Christ. What the fuck?
What?
There's all the room in there. You see
Got,
it?
got a lot more room to go, bro.
It's gonna break the fucking controller.
No, it won't. I'm sure it's meant to pinch it.
So is my fucking anus.
It really does bend that arm in quite a bit.
Hell yeah, it does.
I mean, I don't know why that would be a bad thing.
That's
I
not
mean,
what those other spacers are for, are they?
uh-uh.
Are you sure?
How would they fit in there?
Are you sure?
How would they fit in those shocks?
Well, if we look at them,
There's no way.
they might fucking fit in the holes like bushings, like that. You know, there'll be a little bit of slop, and they take up that fucking space.
It doesn't say shit about that.
Well,
yeah.
just look at it again.
Maybe it does say something about that. Bushing spacer. God damn it, dude. That's the one thing I fucking missed.
You're a fucking idiot.
Oh, shit.
Stupid motherfucker.
Now-
I was gonna say, there's no way.
Now I damaged the control arm.
That doesn't mean anything. Now we're not gonna be able to get them in there.
I can't believe I missed that, dude. I'm sorry.
I was just thinking when I'm like, there's no way. I could see it moving a little bit, but a lot of it. God, I miss my gloves.
I guess it won't be a bitch.
Yeah, getting it back up in there.
No. Oh, this ain't going.
Here, I got it.
That'll work.
I just opened it up a little bit.
That's why it's stamped steel.
Yeah. Oh shit. Oh motherfucker.
Made a mistake. I forgot the bushing spacers in the rear shock absorbers. So as you put the shock in, it'd start to crush on the control arm. So I had the white line rear upper control arm eccentric bushings put in so I can adjust camber. And it's one of those kits where you have to press out the factory bushings in the arms, push it in and adjust it. Well, if you're gonna have to do this yourself and adjust the camber, forget about it. Invest in the lower control arm kits now that there's plenty of them out there. This is too much of a bitch to deal with, installation and adjusting. So Turbowski is kind of a connoisseur of vintage alignment kits. We're doing it on this 1987 Hunter D111. 1.5 with towing in 0.07 degrees in the rear. This is about as perfect as any human being could get it on the D111. So we're trying to attempt to do the camber adjustment while the car's under load. And this is gonna be very difficult to do. The thing is, we don't want to tear up the, you don't want to.
No, just stop maybe. I just don't want to lose it.
Oh, keep that motherfucker tight.
We still gotta go. How much do you want in the front?
2.
Oh shit. Just gonna have to max this motherfucker out.
Is that shit tight? It's not gonna slide. Oh!
How much is that?
Maxed out.
Maxed out is 1.7. Get the fuck out of here, cocksucker. Get out of here, you can fucking kill. Oh, there it goes.
It moved.
I let it down very slowly.
All right, we're done with the alignment. We didn't corner balance. We didn't adjust ride height because the scales are broken. So we're gonna have to do that a different day, but at least our alignment's straight and our ride heights are actually pretty close to what they were stock. So we'll take that for now. We're gonna test drive and make sure everything's okay. So we finished the install and we do have a little bit of a clunk in the left rear that we think we've figured out, but these are the adjusters. There's one on each rear shock. So if we look over at that shock, you can plainly see there's a nice knob. Oh. It's a week later. And it's probably a good thing we had some issues, but there's been so much settling of the suspension that giving it a week is probably the most optimal thing we could have done for ride height adjustment. So we're back a week later, we're gonna adjust the ride heights, recheck the alignment, and Turbowski is...
Hungry?
What is that?
I have no idea.
Turbowski brought me a home-cooked meal. Basically, it looked like somebody evacuated their bowels in aluminum foil and then put pepper on it. I'll have that later. So let's check some pressures. So we have our before and after ride height numbers. For example, here is our stock ride heights. You can see where at front left was 660 millimeters. And our front left afterwards is 652 millimeters. So we have a 2 millimeter adjustment we need to make. This is almost 10 millimeters exactly dead on from before and after. So the adjustments we actually have to make are extremely minimal, which is very surprising now that it's settled. So this is our old control arm here with the actual end link in it, because as we found out, not only were these arms destroyed, but the end link here that we've zip tied to this arm was stripped out, so we can't get it out of here. And this was actually the source of our clunking on the. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna replace both control arms with the OEM pieces, because I'm not that confident in the aftermarket arms yet, and I don't wanna add another variable in here. So we're gonna replace all these bolts. New arm. This is the outer. As you can see, there's spacers here that they give you for the Ohlins shocks. They slide in here, and it can be a snug fit in this arm. to be a very snug fit in certain circumstances. Our YouTube statistics are 97% male viewership. That leaves 3% of females out there. Turbowski, the way he can turn a wrench, just imagine what he can do with one of you lucky 3%ers out there. The sway bar end link bolt is 28 pounds of torque. This is the one that was stripped out.
Not from us, right there.
Not from us. For once. What is it, 59?
It better be.
All of them are 59. Here, this is 59 pounds, 59 pounds, 28 pounds, 59. What we're gonna do now, since there's a little bit of variance in the rear shock height or rear ride height, we're gonna adjust the height on these, which can be a pain in the ass, which we'll find out here. You unlock, these are the locking collars because the perch height is separate from the ride height. So you don't adjust spring load or preload, you can just adjust the body of the shock. So we're gonna loosen this so we can twist the shock body and raise it up. One full turn is equal to 1.5 millimeters of ride height adjustment. So obviously if you move it up, it's 1.5, one turn, or down 1.5. So we need to do the calculation to make sure before we even turn the shock body that we're doing the right thing. All right, so I've gone to the bathroom. I've had a dookie. And oddly, the rear is 20 millimeters, almost 20 millimeters of a drop, where the front was only 10. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a 10 millimeter drop in the front, so we don't have to mess with it, and a 10 millimeter drop in the rear. So the question is, how many turns do we have to do? And after a lot of math on the toilet and confirmation, we have it here.
Oh, we have to go, that was 5, right?
Was that 4 or 5?
That was 5.
Okay.
It's 5 or 6 here.
6.
Oh, yeah. I can't turn this one.
No?
No. Hell no. There it goes. This is just such an awkward position. Oh. Holy shit. I can't fucking. It's like, I gotta raise it up.
Okay.
You're probably have to
Now, with adjustable suspension comes all the drama of trying to adjust things. So we actually had to take the shock off and then twist the body, which was a hell of a lot easier. But, you know, of course, we screwed up a little bit of the preload, had to readjust that again, lock down this, and then we scratched the Ohlins shock because Scott is trying to sabotage any chances I have of winning the local car shows. And I'm trying to finally beat those calibers this year, bro, and you fucking ruined it for me. So the bottom line is we finished the installation. Took us over 2 weekends. Well, that's partly because of some bonehead mistakes that cost us time and, of course, money. But if you're gonna do adjustable suspension, one thing you need to take away is you're gonna add a lot more complexity to alignments. So let's take a road trip, 800 miles to Ohlins in North Carolina to interview some of the more technical people on board. We're at Ohlins in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and we're here with Jeff, and I appreciate you bringing us down today.
Sure, thanks for coming.
So we're here, we're going to talk about some of the Ohlins suspension for the motorsport products and just take a general tour of the facility. What's the first thing you're going to show us here today?
Well, I guess right now we're standing in our new reception area lobby that we just have recently finished, and from here we'll go on and show you guys the also new training facility that we're working on finish. It's about 90% complete, and that's where we'll go to next.
So this is your new training area?
This is the new training facility. We should have it up and running shortly. Primarily what happens here is we'll have classes and seminars, continuing education, classes for our existing service centers, training of new service centers, Ducati master technicians, all have to come here for different levels of certification. But ultimately, I mean, if you are a high-end, reputable suspension manufacturer, you're only as good as your dealer and your service network. So it's key to have that, that support. And I think if you want to build a good reputation in the world of high-performance suspension, you need to make sure that you have an educated dealer network. And that's really what we're trying to continue to foster with this new facility, is to, like I said, continue to further educate our existing dealer network, entice new ones, and know that they're going to be, you know, well supported and well educated and be able to provide the type of service that we want the Ohlins dealer network to provide.
Sorry. So Jeff, tell us a little bit about this area.
Well, this is the motorcycle lab. This is where we do all of the service, tuning, and custom builds of anything and everything motorcycle related. And that incorporates all of street bike stuff, track racing bikes, motocross, and to a lesser extent, we still do dabble in some ATV and snowmobile stuff. But this is where all the, like I said, tuning, service, and custom builds go. And so all of that kind of happens here. Now, since we are Ohlins USA, we handle pretty much all the US-based race circuits. And then where anything that's more, you know, MotoGP and everything like that is serviced over in Sweden, and we focus on the racing that just takes place on our soil.
Okay.
Part of custom tuning any damper is the suspension dyno. And this is where you can essentially cycle a damper, and essentially gives you what they call a curve. And through different valving, different clicker settings of the damper, you can kind of see how it's actually affecting the damping forces themselves. And this allows you it's essentially the quintessential tool for doing any type of custom setup and suspension tuning.
We've moved over to the automotive section, and Jeff's going to tell us a little bit about this is basically the rebuild and repair area?
It is, yep. This is kind of the same thing as the motorcycle lab. This is the automotive lab. And here on this side of things is where we do the same type of work, custom builds, service, and tuning of automotive dampers. Now that covers a much wider array of dampers than the motorcycle. We have everything from, you know, open wheel race dampers to GT cars, you know, SCCA track type stuff, to rally cars, raid cars, late model asphalt, dirt late model, a whole host of different type of applications. So there's a much wider variety of damper construction and design that come through this area, and much more, a lot more engineering work happens on the automotive side here than the motorcycle side, because so much of the motorcycle world is engineered in Sweden, and it's a plug and play product. And but that's about it. And it is obviously a little bit smaller than the motorcycle lab, because that is in proportion to who we are as a company. We do more business in the motorcycle world than we do in the automotive world, but it's largely due to the fact that we're new to street cars and we're not new to street motorcycles. And that's, you know, street is always going to have a bigger market than race, and we're well known in automotive motorsport circles, not quite so much on the street. Well, here I'm kind of standing in the middle of our 7-post shaker rig, and this is an extremely capable suspension tuning tool, one of the more sophisticated suspension tuning tools available in the world. It's a 7-post shake rig in the sense that you have 4 wheels, and then you also have 3 chassis tie downs. And what we're able to do with this is take data from any racetrack, from any particular car on any particular racetrack data logging system, enter it into our software and recreate all of the aspects of the car on that track, from everything obviously from mechanical grip and everything that affects it, aerodynamic downforce, track conditions, tire temperatures. You don't have to spend money on tires. You can do all of that testing and get a lot of your tuning done here before you ever go to the track. Try out spring rates, try out different clicker settings, compound, different wings, because you can simulate different amounts of downforce on these tracks. Can all kind of help teams get a little bit of a jump on the competition before they show up at the track and be better suited to bring home the W.
Okay, so we have plenty of cars on the market. Out of those cars that are made, production vehicles, how many of those brands do come from the factory with Ohlins suspension?
Very few. OEM is not a huge part of our business in automotive. It's fairly decent in motorcycle. Currently, that I'm aware of, brands, and it's not even full brands. A lot of times it's select models within a brand. The Lamborghini Aventador comes stock with Ohlins dampers. Pretty much all the entire Pagani line is stocked with Ohlins. The Zondas, the Huayra, and most of the iterations of those.
This next question is kind of related to our project with the FRS BRZ or GT86. So obviously this kit came and was designed in Sweden, or designed by the Swedish arm. How is the R&D done for some of these kits? Like what tracks is it tested on? How much road testing and how much design goes into it before it ships over to the US and you're sold as a product?
Sure. Well, we try to keep, in Sweden, they try to keep a very rigid structure, and so that they can get accurate data. It's one main test driver that does all the test driving for all the kits. He's very in tune with what we feel an Ohlins damper should feel like and perform like. So we don't have a huge fit list, and it's because we spend a lot of time making sure that not just does it look right on paper, does the math work right given the motion ratio and the corner weights, and does it perform like an Ohlins damper should when it's on the car. And that's a time-consuming process, and that's why we have really probably one of the smallest fit lists of any, and the fact that we're still new and growing this aspect of the market. But instead of saying, okay, here's a new car, here's the data on it, we can, based on that, spec this spring rate, this valving package typically works well with this spring rate, and within a week of that car's arrival to the States, coilover kits are available for it. That's not how we operate. And we, it's, like I said, it's one of the reasons that the fit list is small, but it also ensures that we deliver a product that we're proud to put our name on, and we know it's been through the same testing channels everything else goes through before it gets into production.
Okay. So they do road, street, or
absolutely
street and track testing on all these kits?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, months worth before anything ever actually goes into production.
And these are all tested on the stock car from the factory. There's no track day tires or any type of modification to it?
Everything's stock.
Okay.
And we feel that's the only fair way to do it. Everybody's going to have their own wheel and tire package and their own roll bar package, and it's kind of, that's part of tuning at that point.
The road and track kit, in terms of price point, now clearly you guys want to get into the street market, and the road and track kit is the perfect kit to do that for this car, but the complaint is from a lot of the hardened track guys is the price point that it comes in at is significantly higher than some of the double adjustable kits that are out there from KW and even from some of the smaller shops.
Sure.
Why have a single adjustable setup for something at this price point when you know that most of the people that are going to spend that kind of money are going to be probably more track oriented.
Sure. Well, us being a motorsport company, first and foremost, and taking the technology that we've developed in motorsport and trickling it down into our road and track dampers, we feel our road and track dampers are extremely track oriented, track capable. Sometimes it takes a spring rate swap to extract the most of that capability out. The reason for offering single adjustability is to allow 90% of your track guys the ability to get a good setup out of it. When you incorporate double adjustable, you complicate things tremendously. And that being said, a double adjustable damper is not better than a single adjustable damper. Just because it has rebound and compression separate does not make it a better damper. It does make it more adjustable. That doesn't necessarily make it more capable or higher performance. And so there is kind of that misconception that more knobs is a better shock, and it couldn't be farther from the truth. The quality of the damper, the precision machining of the piston, and the engineering behind the piston, and the quality of the shims, and what's happening inside the damper, different types of technologies like our DFV, our dual flow valve, are really what makes a damper high performance. And so we put a lot of time and effort into ensuring that we are getting a very track capable damper that people who don't have a team of engineers or access to suspension dyno or even know how to read a curve off of a suspension dyno, which is not, most of the people who go to the track. We want to give them something that they're going to be able to set up in a weekend and say, okay, this is my local track. This is where I spend most of my time. I know that I'm really enjoying 5 clicks back from full stiff up front, 7 clicks back from full stiff out back. I like that setup. I drove here on 15 clicks from full stiff all the way around, and I'm getting as good, if maybe better, than OEM ride quality with that. And that's what we tried to present with the road and track package, and put it in a package that's going to be durable and have extended service intervals, and not something that has to be pulled off the car on a regular basis. We consider everything from two-way adjustable on up a motorsport product, and that's built with different criteria in mind. Lower friction seals, a whole host of things that don't necessarily make for an ideal daily driver. We can make road and track dampers with two-way adjustability, but it would be, once again, even more expensive, and it's not a cheap product to begin with, but Ohlins never has been, and it never will be. We don't chase value-oriented products. We're not a value brand. It's not who we are as a company. We want to produce the highest end product we can at the best of our engineering capabilities, and it'll be priced as such. We're not really chasing price points. We're chasing performance.
Okay, and that helps clear up a lot of that. And most of the questions were related to the price point of
Sure.
course. And
Yep.
If you look at the product catalog for Ohlins, it's a very small list. And then you put a car like for our project, the BRZ and FRS, it's a $25,000 car. So when you start talking about $3,000-$4,000 suspension add-on,
It's more than 10% of the car.
it's a huge amount. So when you see some of these kits that are pretty decent kits for $1,500 to $2,000, people start to ask, well, what are you getting for that higher end esoteric price point for this car?
Well, largely you're going to get better performance at the track and better comfort as a daily driver. The more sophisticated the damper is, the better job it can do at being a Jekyll and Hyde type product and give you great performance in both places without having to make massive changes, on your clicker settings or your preload settings, or God forbid spring swaps and stuff like that to get between the two. You generally, in your $1,500 and $2,000 price point, there certainly are plenty capable dampers out there. Most of them are going to be good for one or the other. You're going to have pretty good street setups, but they're going to suffer at the track. You're going to have good track setups, but maybe a little too stiff for the street. And a very sophisticated, a very high-end, highly engineered damper can do both. And that's when you really don't see that much below. I mean, you can't put a hard number on it, but it's not commonly found below the $3,000 price point in the world of coilovers. And that's where you get the ability to do both. And it's not, one of the things that a lot of people overlook is that even for a race car driver, comfort equals confidence. If the driver's comfortable pushing the car, and the car's not beating him to death, and this translates to street use too, you're going to have the confidence to push the car closer to its limit because you don't feel like it's constantly on the edge of its traction. So the more comfort you can engineer into a damper, generally the better lap time you can get out of the track as well. And you don't see that at the lower end because it's not an easy thing to do.
Sure.
But the the BRZ kit came in that price point, and we were all concerned. We're like, it's a $25,000 car.
Right.
It's a almost $3,700 kit. And it's taken off. It's actually a really strong seller. It's exceeded our sales goals already for the year. And I think it's one of those products that once you have it on the car and you spend some time with it, you realize the value. But it's tough to stomach before then.
Right. Yeah, and that's really the most frequent thing that I'm seeing about it. I mean, everybody wants it, of course. It's like the sticker shock of. It's definitely.
Yeah, we're well aware of it, and like I said, we did everything. We did everything we could to try and get that price point down to the most manageable level possible. And at the end of the day, this is where it had to be. And so we're thrilled that people have still adopted this kit, and sales have been strong at that price point. And since people have been putting this on the kit, we haven't had a single complaint, and everybody seems thrilled with the package so far. So even though it is a bit expensive, we're still chalking it up to a successful kit for us.
Excellent. That's one of the things that we're trying to finish here is we're finishing the installation, the road test, and then the track testing to really come up with a solid feel of is it really worth the price point? That's what everybody really wants to know. When you make any type of modification, everybody wants to know that their dollar stretches the farthest possible. And on our drive here, initially, it's really strange how much better the car rides than the stock shocks. And that's my last question for you. As a lot of people talk about the OEM suspension, especially on the BRZ and the FRS GT86, that it's extremely good out of the box. How is it that these OEM shocks or struts can last? People aren't changing them for 100,000 miles, right? Yeah. And then we go to a suspension kit. It doesn't really what manufacturer it is. You hear 1-year warranties, you got to rebuild it after 3 hours track time, 10 hours track time. How is it that these expensive coilover kits that we're getting don't last as long as the OEM shocks or struts? What's the magic in that?
Largely, OEM has a whole different set of rules to live by to be an OEM product, from very stringent manufacturing standards, largely durability standards. I mean, to be an OEM supplier, it needs to be a durable product first and foremost. Performance is generally not the last thing on their mind, but it's not the top of the list. You need, in the world of OEM, you got to build 100,000 mile struts, 100,000 mile shocks. And with that comes a ton of seal stiction, a bushing stitching, and very tight tolerances that hamper the fluid movement of the damper. And so anytime you go higher performance, you want to reduce as much friction as possible, but you've got to ride a balance of fine line of performance versus durability. This is a damper off of the Toyota Formula One car, the now defunct Toyota Formula One project, and it's a 4-way adjustable damper. extremely minimalistic in design, as you can see. Formula One's all about weight. It weighs, this damper clocks in at just under a pound. Do very special projects, machined titanium shafts, aluminum, magnesium bodies, ultimately we build what the teams want. This guy is off one of the Audi LeMans prototype cars that have won 24 Hours of Le Mans for more than a decade now. This is off one of the earlier generations of those, and this is a forged magnesium body, machined titanium shaft. Again, weight is of the utmost concern, and this is actually a two-way adjustable damper. And harkening back a little bit to our earlier conversation, everybody thinks, more buttons give you a better damper. Well, here's a damper you can't really put a price tag on that is claimed victory in arguably one of the most demanding and storied races in the world, 24 Hours of Le Mans, and it's a two-way adjustable damper.
So a lot of people make a big hooey about external reservoirs. Really, what do external reservoirs bring to street cars versus track cars, and where is it really needed?
There's several reasons, and it's hard to say whether. It depends on the technology and the damper construction and what you're trying to do with it. External reservoirs are largely viewed by the street car crowd as a higher end product. If it's got external reservoirs, it's a better shock. I mean, that couldn't be farther from the truth. External reservoirs, hoses, restrict oil flow. Anything that restricts oil flow is going to harm damper performance and potentially generate more heat. So we try to avoid them as much as possible. In certain applications, you got to have them. But what it does primarily is it gets the dividing piston that separates the gas and the oil out of the main body of the shock. It generally allows you to get more stroke out of the damper, reposition it over to this side, and then you can essentially have a compression valve core in your reservoir and control your compression here, and then control your rebound at the base of the shaft. And that's what's commonly happening in most monotube dampers. Now, to just with our TTX systems, the reservoirs are almost always either on inline or piggyback, because we again try to restrict or eliminate the use of hoses at any, if at all possible, because you're going to get a better oil flow path through a damper like this. So.
Is there any negative part to having the canister like piggyback other than size?
Fitment.
Okay.
I mean, that's really in any and every application. If you've got a reservoir type system, piggyback is ideal if it can happen, but it complicates fitment tremendously, okay. Especially in street car applications. The whole idea of having external reservoirs, you can expand the oil volume, so you're not going to typically generate as much heat and have a higher oil volume. You can have a compression adjuster at the head of the can. You can have more room for dividing piston to get more stroke out of the damper. But because it has them, doesn't mean it's a better shock. You can have dampers that are monotube that have the dividing piston inside the main cylinder body that do a better job of heat management, that do a better job of being a high performance unit based on that construction without the external reservoir. But it's a perception thing, and when people are spending a lot of money on dampers, you can't blame them for wanting something that's going to look awesome. We are a function first, form later type company, and especially with the road and track products, we've developed extraordinarily sophisticated damper that we feel outperforms a lot of remote reservoir products that are on the market. And we have the customers and even dealers who have taken those out and put ours in and are happier with them to back up those claims. So we feel we've got a good product, but yeah, you know, at our price point, we're certainly up against, you know, remote reservoirs, and that's always going to be a tough battle because, you know, a company like Ohlins that's relatively small in the streetcar market, we're not going to be able to go out there single-handedly and educate the public that, you know, that doesn't, you know, more buttons and more reservoirs does not necessarily mean higher performance, you know. But we're going to, you know, one kit at a time, just continue to put the Road and Track dampers out there. And I think as people who have tried a few other dampers, you know, get on ours, they start to see that, you know, it doesn't have to have a reservoir. It doesn't have to be two-way adjustable to be a very high performance product. So, yeah, it's a perception thing, and remote reservoirs are great marketing tool.